I will tell you what my favorite tools are right now, specifically for image generation. If I have a quick idea that I want to visualize, I go to, and I also suggest people to use that because it's absolutely free and it's very simple to use. It's like the best of both worlds. It understands your prompts really well, like ChatGPT does, because it has good prompt adherence and it also has very good quality of visuals that you can create.
Welcome to a new episode of XR and AI Spotlight, the show where we give the stage to the founders and makers pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Sachin Kamal. Sachin is an artist and creative tech entrepreneur. As the co-founder of the AI Lemon Academy, he has trained hundreds of professionals, including teams at Amazon, on how to use AI in their daily creative workflow. From initial concepting to refined prompting to generate specific visual, he runs bootcamp for leaders and professionals in the creative industry. And he spent literally hundreds of hours exploring the latest AI tools and workflows. We will dive deep into the world of AI-generated images and will discover the best AI image generator for various use cases.
Midjourney, I think it's an amazing tool during your initial inspiration stages, when you don't want that 100% control. But it gives you these wonderful creative ideas which you might not have thought of. On the other hand, if you want that level of control, you might need to venture outside of Midjourney and start exploring.
Such an obsession with consistency and how he decided to take this matter into his own hand.
I'm obsessed with consistency in terms of creating images with AI, consistency in terms of style and the character consistency itself, right? Because I have tried to explore every single tool workflow that is out there. So I went ahead and built a consistent character GPT, which was top 5 on the Doly store. Right now, I think it's top 10. But it has 300,000 plus users.
And how GenAI images are used in real production.
You can do a whole lot of things and cut back your pre-production by almost 80-90% in some cases to then get that confidence stamp of approval, communicate your ideas very clearly, and get going before you start putting in more effort into that idea.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshy, who made this episode possible. Meshy is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality, stylized model in just a minute. One feature that I personally love is the ability to create stylized textures for any mesh, with or without UV, and since the release of Meshing 2.5, pro users can even edit only section of the generated textures with just a text prompt. Try it out, go to meshy.ai, start the 7 days trial, and after that, use the code XRAI20 to get 20% off your subscription. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Sachin under the spotlight. Sachin, it is a great pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you very much for that awesome introduction. And yeah, I'm super happy to be over here. We have had a couple of conversations, and yeah, I would love to have an interesting discussion.
And I always scout for the people that are really doing this, right? And that's one thing that actually attracted me to what you are doing, what the AI Lemon Academy is doing, because you're really like a doer with continuously exploration, the latest tools. We're going to discuss something about images. We are going to discuss something about video, all generated by AI. But first, I want to ask what could be one of the hardest questions. What do you think is right now the best GenAI tool for images?
Right. That is a tricky and hard question. And I will tell you what my favorite tools are right now, and specifically for image generation. So if I have a quick idea that I want to visualize, I go to Ideogram, and I also suggest people to use that because it's absolutely free and it's very simple to use. Right. So that's one. The second one is my all-time favorite and everybody's favorite is Midjourney for very high quality visuals. And the third one for getting more control would be Leonardo AI. So I would suggest, like for different use cases, to pick and choose from these tools.
So, and what leads you to say, okay, this is a better tool for this specific use case? For example, you say if you want more control, you use Leonardo, while instead for faster, maybe more refined images, I would use Midjourney. Why are you making that preference?
Right. So that's because Midjourney is great when you have a concept in mind and you want to get more creative in terms of the style, the aesthetics, right? But while also giving that creative freedom. So in Midjourney, for example, you cannot create an image of, let's take an example, an image of a person with that exact pose, right? For example, you want to say that I need to have that person in the exact composition like I envision it, and it needs to have an exact pose like it's here in the photograph which I have taken. That's not possible. But you can do that in Leonardo using stable diffusion extensions. So those are the differences if you talk about Midjourney and Leonardo.
Right. So this is a good, interesting point. This also it has to do with one of the major bottleneck and challenges that is obtaining, for example, images that are consistent and also with the intent of the
Yep.
creator. Right. Why do you think, for example, Midjourney hasn't implemented something like that already? For example, pose
Yep.
based images like in Leonardo. Why do you think is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. And following up with how Midjourney has been positioning themselves right from the start, they are they are more like a canvas for creative concepting. Like if you want to get those wonderful creative ideas and visualize them, they want to make that possible. And it's because of that element of creativity, spontaneous creativity, that even like Midjourney adds on top of it. I think it's an amazing tool during your initial inspiration stages when you don't want that 100% control. You cannot get that 100% control, but it gives you these wonderful creative ideas which you might not have thought of. But on the other hand, if you want that level of control, Midjourney would not give you that 100% control, right? So you might need to venture outside of Midjourney and take start exploring more stable diffusion and other tools that are out there that gives you that control.
And you mentioned stable diffusion, right? And one thing, there are two more that, so you mentioned, of course, Midjourney. Which was the first one again? Maybe let's say it again for the people. The first one
The
that you
first
mentioned.
one is Ideogram, and it's like,
Ideogram?
yeah, it's like the best of both worlds. Like it understands your prompts really well, like ChatGPT does, because it's it has good prompt adherence, and it also has very good quality of visuals that you can create. So it's a best of both ChatGPT and Midjourney, and it's very simple to use and it's free. So I would say if anybody wants to just give it a try and visualize that initial ideas, Ideogram is a place to go.
I'm pretty sure people are gonna rush, but stay here with us for a little more because we have more to share before you check the tool. The other thing, what about, for example, Dali? And I want to
Yep.
also expand into what is perceived often as a more advanced level of generative co-working with, let's say, with generative AI, being, for example, ComfyUI, right? Can you maybe tell us a bit also these two and see how they are positioned within the others that you have just mentioned?
Right. So to touch upon Dali, I mean, Dali is a great tool if you want to create some visuals for your presentation, like where you don't want that high quality visuals, you don't want photorealism, you don't want specific aesthetics, right? It's great because you have it all in one platform. So you're like trying to get concept ideas, you're trying to refine the creative brief, and then you say, hey, I want to quickly visualize what this might look like. So even before going out of like going to Midjourney, I would say, okay, let me try to see what would happen what would it look like if I try to create that image within Dali. But you will realize that when you're doing this, it's great to just understand, hey, how it might interpret my prompt or my requirements. But you will realize that it's just giving you results that are not photorealistic. The aesthetics don't look good. There are quite a bit of flaws in there, but it listens to your prompts very well because it's a large language model. And with natural language processing, even if you have like a simple conversation with it and you ask it in the next sentence, hey, can you visualize this idea for me? Whatever it has told
So,
earlier or ideating earlier. So it's great next step to quickly ideate and like visualize it right in there.
So if what you're saying in this case is with Dali, you get something that looks like what you asked for in terms of composition,
Yeah.
in terms of stuff that is in the image, but the quality of the outcome is not necessarily on par with what you get with Midjourney, for example.
Yes, that's right.
And what about ComfyUI? Because that's something that scares people to some extent.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with it? What's your experience?
Yes, I have. I mean, I love ComfyUI. I love Stable Diffusion and all the open source community that is out there because they keep creating such wonderful workflows for specific use cases, and that there are just so many things to explore within ComfyUI. And the real power of ComfyUI is when you want to get more granular and you want to you know what your inputs are and you know what is the output that you're looking for, and everything in between is something that you can build within ComfyUI. Right? So it's more like a node-based tool. You're saying, hey, this is my input. These are the models I want to use. This is, and you can use multiple different extensions, like every possible extension that is out there for Stable Diffusion. You can segment images. You can do style transfers. And if you think of this, when you can build these intricate workflows and start experimenting with these things, you will realize that you can take more control over your final images. But this is not possible within Midjourney, for example, right? Midjourney has set of things, parameters, features that you can use, and you know how far you can reach with Midjourney. So Midjourney is great during those initial concepting phases.
And maybe for anybody that wants to start experimenting with ComfyUI, is there sort of like a guide for dummies or first steps that people can take into setting it up and maybe doing some basic things? Because sometimes, I have to be honest, it looks kind of overwhelming for someone that doesn't want to get into that layer of complexity. You see these
Right.
nodes, and it's like, okay, what is happening here? It feels like something that would take weeks, months to understand and to run.
Right.
What would be the first step?
Right. First of all, I would say it's not always necessary to start using ComfyUI. I mean, it's great to understand what are the possibilities in there. But for many of the use cases, you will realize you are able to get to 70%, 80% using the web applications that are available. And most of the open source models you can test out already on, for example, Hugging Face or Replicate. So these are two repositories of generative AI models, and you can always find one of these workflows as a model within Replicate. For example, I go and test it out, and I know that I can use the GPU on the cloud. Now, that being said, if people really want to, install ComfyUI and start running it locally and start experimenting, I think there is a platform called as OpenArt AI, where I think there are some beginner tutorials that you can look into. And I think you can also run some of the workflows on the cloud in there. So that gives you a little bit of a feeling of, hey, do I really need this? Because even if you start to learn how to use ComfyUI, you will realize that for every different input and output that you have, you might need to create like a custom workflow or need to modify the workflow. So that might require dedicated time and effort. So it's really I think most important thing is to understand what is the objective, right? What do you really want to get out of it? And maybe just looking at the inputs and outputs, you'll realize, hey, you can get this done other ways, on using the web applications, um, and then decide, hey, do you want to invest that time?
So you mentioned Hugging Face being a place where people can find these kind of models. Open
Right.
Up AI, that is like a tutorial, an intro platform where people can understand
Yep.
how this initial setup works. And you also mentioned Replicate. What is it?
So Replicate is pretty similar to Hugging Face. It's again a repository of generative AI models, um, and mostly for visuals, image generation. I think they also have for LLMs and for music as well. But yeah, it's all the experiments, researches that happen. They first either like you will find them either on Hugging Face or on Replicate.
Sachin, I think I've lost my weekend because I have a lot of work and research for the research to do after this talk. But I want to move forward into another topic that actually is that we touched slightly, being the consistency problem, right? One thing you recently have created to test indeed this consistency, that was a very clever way, was the image of a man with tattoos, right? In different areas, so forehead, arms, and so on, being one of the most a very challenging. I suppose there are other ways of doing it, but that felt was a very good test, and and it felt pretty accurate. Being the tattoos the weakest point, slightly different
Yeah,
position, different shapes, but the look of the individuals, the character that was in there, I would say that unless you look very very closely, you could say this is the same person.
right.
So maybe what tip would you give when it's about trying to create consistent images, and how much of that is on the creator and how much of that is on the tool?
Got it. So, by the way, I'm obsessed with consistency in terms of using creating images with AI. I have tried to explore every single tool workflow that is out there. Um, consistency in terms of style and the character consistency itself, right? Because these two are the key elements to then put up a storyboard, tell a story, while having that flow, and that level of consistency. So, in fact, um, like before Midjourney released the character consistency and the character reference parameters that you can use, there was no easy way to get character consistency. And this is why and during my training programs, this was one of the most common question: how do you get character consistency? And you could do some bit of tricks around Midjourney using seed parameter and prompt prompt modification and all that stuff. Um, so I went ahead and built a consistent character GPT, which was top 5 on the Doly store. Right now, I think it's top 10, but it has 300,000 plus users. So I'm like very grateful that people have been telling me, giving me feedback. So if anybody is looking to generate consistent characters, which are like animation style, I would say that the consistent character GPT on the GPT store is the easiest way to get it done, because many people have used it right now and they have created stories around it. So that's first one, to create consistent characters in animation style. Now, if you want photorealistic consistent characters, I would definitely suggest trying out the Midjourney consistent character updates with the character reference parameters, which gives decent results, but it still has multiple variations. I would suggest trying to build them in a workflow. Let's say, because you can also do face swaps, right? AI face swap, then to get that consistent characters in the end. So these are, I think, the two easiest ways right now. But of course, there are multiple ways. You can use ComfyUI, you can use Stable Diffusion models, and build those workflows to get those consistent characters.
So let's say that some of the tool to some extent helps. You mentioned with this Mid Journey update, you mentioned you have built a custom GPT that does it. One question that I want to ask, because we will always be juggling between tools, because there will likely not be one tool that does everything. And
for
probably
now.
we don't want a tool that does
Yeah.
everything. I'm not sure that we want that, right? Um, but one question is, what are the skills that a creator needs when dealing with these tools, and are these skills transferable?
Yeah. And I think this is the creating consistent characters is um, not a skill that we can develop. I think it's all to do with the tool that you're using and the process you're taking, because it has nothing to do with prompt engineering. It has really nothing else to do other than if the tool has the ability to create those consistent characters. So can it, identify that face, segment it, and do that face swap, and this is what it does. So
Yeah.
I think anybody can do it once they figure out, hey, this is the right workflow for them, and it's all to do with the tool.
And in this case, if we go one level higher and we don't talk about consistent characters, but we talk about image generation,
Yep.
right? Is that what are the skills that people should acquire that you think could be the most useful in that case?
Right. So what I've seen is when you're trying to create images, I mean, of course, with all of these AI tools, the 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 plane of field has been leveled, right? It has been democratized, and everybody can start creating some wonderful visuals right now. But what I've seen is the creative professionals itself who already know what a great visual looks like. What are the key elements for a great visual? Like composition, like lighting, like understanding this basic, even photography related, like how to capture a compelling photograph, how to capture a compelling scene, right? What are those elements in there? So understanding these things already gives you an edge, and you are able to prompt those in a way like you can visualize them while you're prompting it. And then when and AI image generators basically throw you the closest possible result based on that prompt, right? Um, so you will finally, it's about curating those outputs. So picking the best one, because you might create any project, we create like 100 plus images, right? But it's only the top 5, top 10 that you curate, and then you say, hey, these are the ones that will really work. Similar to any creative process, like even like forget about AI, even photography or production. When you go do a wedding photography, you might take 1,000 photographs, but you only end up showing those top 10, 20, which then people pay you for it. So it's finally about having that eye and understanding what a compelling visual is about.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that the recording of these episodes and many more great conversation with incredible experts are available on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. Just head over to my profile or in the episode description below and pick the platform you prefer. And now let's get back to the show. There is one thing also that we are kind of like implied that very often the input for the system is text, right?
Yeah.
We are saying you write the right prompt. I've seen personally, I'm pretty sure you have as well, that this has kind of like broadened up, right? From text, we went to into images, like doing image to image or
Yep.
face swap, to other ways, like for example, sketches. That is also a way in which you can add a level of control to your image. Sometimes
Yep.
sketches accompanied by another image for style or text, for
Yep.
example. More recently, I've also seen various examples where 3D becomes the prompt. So the ability to generate a certain composition in a
Yeah.
3D environment and
Yeah.
then use that as a prompt for what the generation is, along often with text.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that? Where do you see this evolving?
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and I feel the same way. In fact, um, the whole like 6 months ago, the whole creating images with AI tools seemed like more like um, complex English assignment, right? Because I mean, English is not my first language, so even if I know some of the terms, it's very hard for me to really make out some of the words in there. I mean, I had to Google many times, and many times when you try to find, like when you accidentally figure those out, and most of the times the prompts that you use are accidental. There are some keywords that have been um, tokenized while training data, and you don't know the reason why. Nobody knows the reason why, and those aesthetics, those keywords bring out that style. So it did not like for creative professional, and I would say a lot of creative professionals who love using brushes, so like using Procreate, using those color palette, they want to direct that image creation more visually and not by typing a bunch of keywords, right? And I think this is what's happening right now, because if you see how Midjourney is giving new updates, most of the art direction that you can do is by providing images as references, style references. And the prompts is just like a supporting layer on top of it. So the text prompts will get you maybe 50%, 60% there to generate that image. But to get that visual direction, that control, to steer it in your own art your idea that you have, you are now going to use more image references, right? And you're saying, hey, extract this lighting, this aesthetic, this style from it, and create more variations like that. So I think prompt engineering and the whole like prompt engine, like just prompting, right? So it was very important, and it's still important to some extent right now. But I think very quickly all the tools will get very good at understanding what your basic prompt is, and to get more control, you are going to steer it more in terms of visuals, right? Like looking at how you can. A great example for this is the Kriya tool, where you are creating shapes and your prompt is just 1 or 2 lines, and then you're just creating shapes and moving those shapes around to get that control over your image.
And you have seen how I think also many of these tools now they have this help to make you write better prompt.
Yeah.
Right. So you there is this prompt engineering. Everybody needs to know prompt engineering. But
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, AI, it's super good at writing text, right?
Yeah.
And now we are pretending that we are the engineers there. I think it's short-sighted personally, and I think it has to do much more with what you have said at the beginning, being, for example, the curation of this image. What is that works well in the composition?
Yeah.
And another thing that I would like to discuss as well, being workflow, right?
Yeah.
So because we get these images, okay, all nice and good. It's probably good enough for what I have, what I need. Then how does the workflow actually continues and evolves?
Right. So I would say workflows can be very simple, or it can be multiple, complex workflows. And again, it depends on, I like to break this down again into, hey, what are your inputs? What do you already have as raw materials to then control the final output that you're looking for? Now, the final output might not be very clear all the time, and you might get new ideas along the way. So once you figure this out and you know how much of flexibility you have over your final output, for me, like a simple workflow for me right now can be, for example, I use like plugging in multiple AI tools, right? Like uh, if anybody who wants to try this out as part of creating their visuals, this workflow might work very good, and you will see the power of using multiple tools. So the first one is ChatGPT to do your, get your creative brief, get that creative ideation going, iterate on it, and get those first visuals within ChatGPT, right? Using the Doly 3. You can also take help of GPTs over here. So once you have nailed down on a couple of concepts, then you can start taking it into Midjourney, or you can take it into Leonardo, or Ideogram in between, to first visualize those concepts. And within Midjourney, you can do a lot of different things. You can first build your basic prompt, just focusing on the subject and your style, and then you can add new layers to it and get more control of your visuals. And from there, you can do a lot of image manipulation techniques as well. So once you have that, then you can go further. Next step, use like AI animation tools to add that layer of animation. You can add music and bring it all together and, tell, like create a wonderful 30-second video. That is a great workflow that you can experiment and try it out.
Because I know very well you have also been experimenting with video, something we are gonna discuss. But before we move into that, you mentioned image manipulation. Do you intend like working on Photoshops? Is that what you're talking about when you refer to image manipulation?
No, I think you can use already like within Midjourney a lot of different ways to then get the composition, those granularity in within your images, right? Or you can do image manipulation within Leonardo, right? So there are a lot of ways using AI.
And this is also another point. I've seen that these tools, unlike other apps or tools, AI tools tend to broaden up in things that they can do. So usually tools like 3D tools or other creatives, they tends to focus on one thing and then go deeper in that one. While instead tools like Leonardo that over the past year has evolved into, I wouldn't say everything, but so much more. It was just an image, then it came indeed videos, then there is that sketching capabilities,
Yep.
then I've seen that I was experimenting with 3D. It feels a bit kind of like out of focus. This is just a thought that I had while
Yeah.
you mentioned this workflow. What I mean, let's not talk about Luma AI because that is another one that went
Yeah.
like to all over the places, like
Yeah.
Gaussian splats, and then I have videos now, and
Yeah.
it's like it's insane. What's your take about these tools that are
Yeah.
broadening up instead of specializing?
Yeah, I mean that is true, and I was never expecting Luma would launch, a Sora competitor. Um, I that was very surprising, but I like the focus, and we always talk a lot about Midjourney, right? And we keep it's like we take it as a default that everybody knows Midjourney and uses it. But actually, they are kind of a great example just because of this, because they have focused on one single thing and try to just add more features, more control to get the to build that community. And I I don't really like, and you're right. Leonardo has multiple things right now, and they also have the similar features which Midjourney has as well. But you can get much more control within Leonardo because it's powered up with Stable Diffusion, and you have all those extensions and stuff. But I think Leonardo is moving more towards uh, create becoming like a platform, right? Like you can do everything within Leonardo. You also have a canvas there, similar to in Photoshop how you can do generative fill. um, so I think Leonardo is trying to have that single platform, having suite of tools where a creative agency can do their entire workflow right within Leonardo. At least that's my hypothesis right now. And of course it's always fun to see every other tool like Luma, like trying to do some cool stuff and trying to, I mean, and they have done an amazing job with that. And I think that's
That's
probably
it.
because they had that foundational model that they could, like they were all about 3D, and they know the videos are more about creating that 3D environment and having that 3D motion of the camera. I don't know, probably they had an advantage on that, and they knew that probably this would work really good.
I want to one question. So you have those images, and you have taught hundreds of creatives and professional within your course on how to generate those images. I was wondering, where are they actually ending up? Is that like social media post, personal portfolio? Is that like website, games? Can you give us a high level breakdown percentage? I know that might sound a lot to ask, but
Yeah.
where are all these AI generated images ending up?
Right. So I would say again, it depends because we have a diverse audience as well. But majority of our audience are creative professionals or creative leaders. where they have a design team they're working with, and they're working on certain brands. So it's more about, hey, what are the suite of tools and what are the techniques and workflows that you can build to go from a concept that you have to the final visual and tell a story. So that's what the entire learning journey is about. So we have seen examples where copywriters, for example, they want to be able to visualize their ideas, like their whatever they are communicating, and now they have a way to do that using simple workflows, what you can learn and build within the suite of tools. There are also where most of these tools at the end product is in the pre-production stages, where you can pitch to your client and get that approval, right? To then start putting more marketing dollars or like more money into taking it to the next level, like actually executing those things. So think of if you have like a creative brief and sending out the idea what it's going to look like, and sending out a pitch document with the examples, with the storyboard, fully ready with wonderful visuals, right that day or the next day, right? In fact, this process would take almost a week or two, along with a couple of people, to get those ideas out and to then tell your client, hey, this is what it's going to look like. So you can do a whole lot of things and cut back your pre-production by almost 80-90% in some cases, to then get that confidence stamp of approval, communicate your ideas very clearly, and get going before you start putting in more effort into the idea.
So you mentioned a couple of examples that sound like they come back among your students or learners, creatives being copywriters that now can enrich their copy in different forms with
Yeah.
images, right? That describe. One is a pre-production, so they technically end up in project briefs,
Yep.
right? Are those the top two, you would say? Are there other places where predominantly these images are
Yep.
ending up?
No, people are also creating, for example, like their brand assets, right? They have a creative team within their brand or agency, and they want to start creating on-brand images, which they can use on social media, for example. So large screen production is still limited in terms of these AI tools. But like if you want to quickly roll out visuals for your brands as part of marketing campaigns, for a variety of different use cases, right? Maybe it's for landing pages, maybe it's for emails, maybe it's for social media. So that's one of the top use cases as well. The other one is also 3D modeling for for packaging design and for product design. So if you want to quickly ideate concepts for, let's say designing a chair. We had a participant who was a professional luxury furniture designer, and they could quickly, turn their sketches into wonderful, highly rendered visuals, and change the texture, change the pattern, the color, and present it to the client, saying, and which can go directly into the brochure, right, or on the website, to show the people, customers, this is what it's going to look like. So the entire design process can be speed up with AI.
Very interesting. I do want to move into another topic that we have touched slightly, being video. Where do we stand with video as of right now? What are some of the good tools that you have tried?
Yeah. Video was very exciting in the initial time when we had Runway, right? Runway ML is still one of the top research labs out there, which is doing a whole lot on their video generative AI models. Now they're saying they will launch this Gen 3 model. So I think from all the quality that we have seen for AI videos, there's still very limited control that you can get, and also the final quality in terms of the resolution that you can get. So right now, Luma, for example, you can just upload an image, give it a prompt, and it animates that image, right? Great. You can get some control by getting those prompts right, in terms of camera movements and all this stuff. And you might need to do a lot of iteration, like hit and run, and that takes time, right? You need to generate and see which one works best for you to tell a story. So there is very limited control. And this is why it's not very efficient to use it as part of production, but you can use it in pre-production, for example, again, to tell your ideas, this is what it's going to look like. This is the vibe and feel of it. This is how the story will unfold. There it definitely helps. Runway, you can get more granular with some of their features that they have, where you can control aspects of the videos. But still, it's a lot of hit and run, and you need
Yeah,
to.
I believe they also have those motion brushes, right? So you
Yes,
can select part
exactly,
of the region and say how that region of the image actually behaves.
exactly. You can give those camera movements like pan, roll, zoom, all of those things. You can get control. You can use the motion brush. So it gives you more control, but still the quality that you see in the end is not that great. It it performs like any of these models. They perform horribly when there is any kind of interaction, when a human needs to interact with the environment or an object or with another person. It does not work out because generative AI models do not understand the context of what the human interaction looks like, and the same reason why hands don't work the way you expect, because the models don't understand how hands really function. They just understand that it has, these are the pixels, and this is what the hand usually looks like. It does not know that it needs to hold a guitar in this manner. So that's the same problem with videos.
And by the way, with interaction, just to make it very tangible, that's why a lot of the tests are when someone bites a sandwich, after the sandwich has been beaten, is there a piece of sandwich missing? Like, I
Yeah,
mean, an
good
example
point.
of those, that's the kind
Yeah,
of
exactly.
consistency things. And so you mentioned Runway, right? There is Pika being another one that's being
Yep.
used. There is also, of course, Dream Machine that was launched by Luma AI.
Yep.
And then we have this that claims to be the holy grail of all video production, being Sora, that we might see at some point this year. Um, where do you think? What's the place for this in do you still see that as being a pre-production stage? And also, there is always this thing I'm struggling with, like, for who are these tools? I
Yeah.
think that the most exciting part for me personally is the fact that you can get anybody then to start creating
Yeah.
and telling stories about whatever that might be. But then, of course, this tool have the need to adapt to the workflows of professionals, people that do this, and companies and
Yeah.
organization. So, where do you see also maybe video playing in this tug of war between video for everybody or video for professional companies to do Hollywood productions?
Yeah. I think the film production level, Hollywood production level, from everything that I've seen and read, I don't think that's happening for quite some time. Now it's gonna take at least next 5 years to reach that stage. Um, and where I see these tools very helpful is to create more abstract kind of videos where you do not have so much focus in terms of those elements interacting with each other. Maybe music videos, for example, because we have seen some music video examples coming out of it, right? Um, so I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for let's say I've been hearing indie filmmakers where they can start using these tools to then um, tell their story. Right now there is a way to do that. Right now it's not like they are not able to do it and they still need all the setup, but now there is some possibility for them to tell a story using these AI tools. So I see that being like a lot of storytellers exploring these AI video generators. But again, like images, and then because a lot of story can be told just with a simple animation layer added to the images, right? It's all about then the narration and the music as well. Um, a lot of cool things can be done with that. And for example, if anybody wants to tell a story in terms of like an animation or like for cartoons, there it's totally possible to use these tools, and I've seen some of the wonderful examples. Again, this is not something that probably will work on big screens, but something that, for a few minutes, it's like a wonderful um, pastime. So one thing definitely is to focus on educating the designers, the creatives themselves on how to use these tools effectively, because only the designers and creative professionals can find the best use of these tools. Like it does level up the playing field for a lot of people. Now they can create images like a small. We had uh, there was this example like 1 year ago where there was a startup. They wanted to launch their product, and they did not have any way to get those mock-ups, product mock-ups, images, which they can put it in their pitch deck or put it on their website to launch anything. Um, and we created this set of images for them using, again, purely fully AI tools. And they could get it done without having to go to a creative agency and spend like 10,000 plus euros. And it was possible that now that startup can exist, right? They can do that stuff. So I think it's the creative professionals and designers who, if they learn this tool, they are the ones who can really push the creative boundaries. Finally, I think of this as not just cutting cost and always talking about replacing designers and efficiency. I think there's a whole lot of possibilities in terms of pushing those creative boundaries, where you can do a lot of those stuff in a more efficient manner using the AI tools.
Sachin, I have one last question before we close up. Being, how do you manage to stay up to date with so many ongoing evolution, right? With so much evolution in these tools, in this space? What advice would you give to others that are trying to keep up, me
Yeah,
included?
yeah. I struggle with that. I equally struggle with that. And what I do is um, I block maybe 2 days to just learn, experiment, or maybe like if I cannot, I like as part of my content creation, because my content creation is one of my important aspect of growing my business. And as part of the content creation, I need to deliberately put some time into experimenting with AI tools. And for this, I need to be always observant what's happening. So I'm always like either looking for latest news from these companies that I follow on Twitter, see what they have launched. Like, can I try something, and like explore and try to build that content and see if the experiments work out. And that can become my content, which I can post on multiple channels, right, to educate people. So I think I'm forced to learn that, but I would say if you can spend at least 2 to 3 hours, block your calendar every week for 3 hours. Always note down or like bookmark and save whatever caught your eye, which you thought might help in your creative process. And that might be a very low risk experiment that you can take, which you can finally deliver to your client as well. So it should be low risk, and see what caught your eye on the internet, bookmark it, and then deliberately block that time, like 2 to 3 hours per week, and go back to it and try to take step-by-step approach to actually do that and put it as part of your use case.
Yeah, and I think that the advantage of blocking time are two. One being, you know that during that time you will do it, but also
Yep.
you will know that you will not extend the playing time beyond that.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
know that that's just 3 hours, and then
Yep.
within these 3 hours, then I have a meeting after, or I
Yep.
have I need to go out, or whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
Because also the risk is that you get hooked in these things, and maybe you want to get
Yeah.
that perfect image, that perfect video, that perfect model, and that's
Yeah.
something that is will take you much more than 3 hours to
Yeah.
do that. So
Yeah.
that's also the risk.
No, absolutely. You get into the rabbit hole and then you lose track of time. So it's also very important to know when to stop using these tools, and you will realize that along.
Sachin, thank you very, very much. I would like to encourage everybody to go and check out the AI Lemon Academy newsletter, because it's packed every week, right? With
Yes.
new updates, tools, and workflows. Some of the output of the 3 hours experimentation from Sachin every week. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Gabriel. Was a pleasure. Was wonderful talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, please leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really means a lot to me, and it's a great support for the show. Till next time.